trip behind the scenes with future country rock blues kings and queens. Discover them first with Palm Mash TV. Palm Mash TV.
Well, hello there. It's Palm Mash TV time once again. Thank you so much for joining us. Got another great interview coming up for you in just a couple minutes. But before we get into that, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell here on YouTube, and you're always going to get the latest interviews whenever they're available. And check out the comment section. Leave us a comment there. And if you're on Facebook, go to facebook.com/PalmMashTV, which is our official Facebook page, and feel free to like the page, inboxes, comment on the things you see there. And we have email, of course, PalmMashTV, all one word, @gmail.com. And if you're a band or a solo artist that want to be on the show, you can use that. Or if you're simply a fan, use that same email address. We'd love to hear from you. And all these things are going to be capped at the closing credits at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. From Brooklyn, New York, we have Lave on the show. And he's a very talented artist, and I think you'll really like him. And we're going to get to that in just a moment, but first, it's Click Jam time, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
We got history, got me feeling the nostalgia when you look at me, thinking about what could.
Well, hello everybody. It's interview time again as promised, and with us from Brooklyn, New York, we have Lave. Thanks for joining us, Lave.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah, no problem. We're glad to have you here today. So I always ask this question because everybody has their own story. Tell us a little bit about what made you decide to be an artist.
It's a long story. I started rapping around 13, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was hanging out on the streets with, gangs and doing stuff like that. And I had a cousin that was into DJing. And then there was a guy that used to go to his studio. He had a home studio, 4-track machine back in those days. And his name was Jim. And every weekend they would go and they would say, yo, you should get off the corner, stop hanging with those guys and come with us to the studio and stuff like that. And I never really had a drive for music. But one Sunday, they went and I went with them. And a friend of mine that was there, he wrote a rap for me because I was so intrigued. I was like, oh, I wanted to rap. And, I didn't know how. And he wrote a rap for me. He gave me a rap name. So my first rap name was Mousy because I was so little and small and my voice was so squeaky. And after that, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I started writing it on my own. And not only from a music standpoint, but I was able to express the stuff that I was going through because I grew up without my mom and dad. I was always living with people. So through my raps, through my poetry, I was able to get rid of some of the stress and some of the pain from, growing up that way. And that's why I loved hip hop, because it was an outlet for me to release stress.
Oh, okay. Well, that's quite a story there. And I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. And I hope you're doing it for a long, long time, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. And tell me some of the artists in the mainstream world that influenced you. I mean, I'm sure you have a few on the top of your head.
I do, man. I do. I would say back in the days, because I'm an older cat, but definitely Rakim. When I heard Rakim, it was like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? The big rope chains and the swagger and the lyrical content behind Rakim was like, oh my God, he was the man. If you fast forward to today's time, it would definitely be Nas, Jay-Z, Big, DMX, those guys like that, because I feel, and then, Busta Rhymes too, because, a lot of people don't really look at Busta as a lyricist, but he's really dope. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of people that could get on a record with him and keep the same energy. So, those guys right there definitely You know, inside I feel like a buster, the energy, but on the outside, I'm like Jake from State Farm, you know.
Yeah, I heard that, man. Yeah, and those guys do have a lot of talent, and you mentioned a couple good ones.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Um, well, if anybody's watching this right now and they say I want to get Lave's music, I guess you would get it on all streaming platforms. Do you have any physical copies? I mean, let us know.
My music is available on Spotify, all the streaming platforms, Deezer, YouTube Music, Apple Music. I have a couple of videos out on YouTube. If you look under Lave Entertainment, if you type that in, LAVE space entertainment, I have 3 videos. I have Coming to My Casa, which is a kind of reggaeton kind of sounding song with a little bit of hip hop to it because my wife is Dominican. And I said, why not, you know, make a reggaeton kind of sounding song? I have the Brooklyn song, and None of That, which is what you're playing today, I guess. And then I have the Honor Us song. Those are all the 3 videos, and I got more coming, you know, so.
Okay. Well, everybody out there watching this right now, be sure to get Lave's music on those streaming platforms he just mentioned. I know he would appreciate that. And
yes.
And you just mentioned None of That, a great song, by the way. Speaking of that song, is there a story behind that song? We would love to hear it.
The story behind that song, man, and I know I'm gonna get clapped on later for it, but the story behind that was when I took a long break from music. I was doing this in my earlier years, and I stopped. I tried really hard. I used to stand out in front of Hot 97 and hand out CDs back in those days. And, you know, really tried my best to get on. It didn't work. And I started doing the family thing. And then I tried again. When I tried again, which is now, it was like the whole music genre changed. So everything was like auto-tune, trap sounding, everything. And people that were listening to my music was like, oh, your music sounds old, it sounds outdated. And to me, I never felt that way because I felt like the trap sound is a South sound, it's a Southern sound. You know, it's those guys, you know, Ice Cube, T.I., they always had their own sound. But New York always had their own sound. We never sounded like anybody from the South. Number one, we don't have an accent. So that was a big difference from the music that I'm hearing now till then. So I told a couple of friends of mine, like, you know, if I had a Southern accent and I rapped on the same beats that I'm rapping on now, I would sound just like somebody from the South. You know what I mean? It would sound up to date. But New York, we always had our own sound. And that's what that Brooklyn song came from, because I'm from Brooklyn, I'm from New York, and this is our sound. This is where hip hop was born, and it's not taken away from anybody else that's doing music in the South and trap stuff. I have some trap stuff too. I love it all. But I just felt like on the radio stations, that's all they're playing. You know, there's room for both of it, for both of us. You know what I mean? You can play the New York sound and old school sound and hip hop, and you can play the new trap sound and whatever it is people like, they're gonna like regardless, as long as the song is hot. And that was the whole purpose behind making that Brooklyn song, you know, because in a song I mentioned, you know, the Brooklyn Nets, you know, this is Brooklyn, this is New York, this is where it is, you know, the birthplace of hip hop. So just to like bust through the door and let everybody know that I'm from New York and I'm from Brooklyn. You know what I mean? So.
Okay. Well, I know everybody's dying to get into that. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Lave, thank you so much for being on the show today. We're about out of time, but
thank you.
We would love to have you back again sometime if you got anything new to plug for us.
Thank you, man. You could tell everybody. Also, you could check my Instagram out. I was at Hot Rod 564. That's at Hot Rod 564. If you could check me out, I post a lot of good things on my Instagram. Sometimes I do sessions in my studio, you know, songs that I be working on and stuff like that. And all the music that I do is all produced by me. Songs are written and all produced by me. So thank you for having me on, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and as I said a minute ago, feel free to come back anytime. We would love to have you if you got something new for us.
Thank you, Paul Match. Thank you.
Okay. All right, here it is. None of that right here on Paul Mash TV, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Yeah, Rodimus. I'm from New York, ain't none of that. In Brooklyn, New York, ain't none of that. If Big was alive, there'd be none of that. The home of the Nets, ain't none of that. I'm from New York, ain't none of that. In Brooklyn, New York, ain't none of that. If Big was alive, there'd be none of that. Home of the Nets, ain't none of that. Niggas wanna talk, ain't none of that. I'm from New York, ain't none of that. Brat, brat, ain't none of that. Trying to shoot the whip up, ain't none of that. Got the full body armor, remember that. 5 on 5, we can run it back. Give you a chance, get your money back. Can play all day for 100 racks. Always in a rush like a running back. Smash 1 or 2, they keep coming back. Cause Lave's that guy. Dispute that, nigga, go ahead, try. Talk shit, man, it's just a bigger lie. On top of my shit like a fly. Looking at multiple properties to buy. That's how we do it out here, where you from? I'm from New York, ain't none of that. In Brooklyn, New York, ain't none of that. If Big was alive, there'd be none of that. The home of the Nets, ain't none of that. I'm from New York, ain't none of that. In Brooklyn, New York, ain't none of that. If Big was alive, there'd be none of that. Home of the Nets, ain't none of that. Run up on them boys like what's up. In my flip mode like Buster. Lollipop niggas, you a sucker. Shorty too ready, I don't trust her. On a nigga meat like mustard. Looking for a payday, yes sir. Nah, shorty, nah, ain't none of that. A nigga got protection and all of that. I don't know why she keep calling back. Yeah, she had dreams, I done spoiled that. It's not gonna happen, ain't none of that. Built this on my own, 2 months for that. Lose it to a chick, nigga, fuck that. That's 1 out of many I could subtract. The marathon lives, we could run a lap. I think you forgot where we from. I'm from New York, ain't none of that. In Brooklyn, New York, ain't none of that. If Big was alive, there'd be none of that. The home of the Nets, ain't none of that. I'm from New York, ain't none of that. In Brooklyn, New York, ain't none of that. If Big was alive, there'd be none of that. Home of the Nets, ain't none of that.